Okay. Awesome, awesome. This is the energy. I love the intro music. What's up, everyone? How many of you guys are 100% in DeFi? That I feel there is a lot of kind of DeFi topics today. Raise your hand. Are you in DeFi 100%? Yeah? Okay, sounds good. Okay, let's start. So this panel is all about interoperability. Let's get it started. Let's do a quick round of intros. EtherFi, do we want to start?
Sure. My name is Mike. I'm the founder and CEO of EtherFi. And what we're working towards building is a DeFi bank, so a full end-to-end alternative to a traditional bank on crypto rails.
Hi everyone, my name is Alex. I'm co-founder at dBridge. We are building the fastest cross-chain bridge, right? Our motto says DeFi does not wait, and our goal is to enable connectivity in DeFi, right? Connecting different DeFi primitives, different protocols and users between each other so they can move liquidity and move information instantly. And yeah, every second person I'm meeting on this conference actually is a user of dBridge, and that's great to see, and great to be among these wonderful builders who are building for DeFi.
Hi everyone, I'm Ran, co-founder of Orderly. We're a DEX protocol focused on perps, omni-chain, live on a dozen chains with one shared order book powered by our Orderly chain. We processed over $100 billion in trading volumes cumulatively since end of 2023. Great to be here. Thank you.
We have some mic. How many of you guys did a bridge before? Hopefully someone, huh?
Yeah.
No? No one? Okay, sounds good. Yeah, how many developers do we have in the room? So we can actually find some questions. Go for it.
Yeah, I'm Gleb. I'm CEO and co-founder of Bloom. We are building on-chain trading infrastructure. So we are one of the biggest mini apps in Telegram. So we started from Ton, but going multi-chain, and also have one of the biggest launch pads for meme coins these days.
Awesome. Excited to have you all. So interoperability kind of like changed concept. It kind of like evolved since obviously like DeFi summer. What does it mean kind of like interoperability for you guys today? What does it mean true interoperability?
I guess maybe as EtherFi, for crypto to gain mass adoption beyond just the very small circle of users that are currently in DeFi, all of the crypto bullshit has to be abstracted away. So the user shouldn't care what chain they're on. They shouldn't have to think about gas. They shouldn't have to think about seed phrases, hardware wallets. All of that nonsense that many of us have kind of come to expect has to be abstracted away. And the experience has to be comparable to other SaaS applications that users are comfortable using. That's what we're working towards, and we built some interesting tech around that. But that's the ultimate goal, I think, of interoperability and what that gets us.
Yeah, I fully agree with Mike. Interoperability is all about user experience, because now we are living at the time when we don't need to build infrastructure anymore, right? We already have too much infrastructure in DeFi, and it's time to build the consumer apps, bring thousands or hundreds of thousands of Web2 users on-chain in DeFi, right? So, and user does not need to think about like all the interactions with the infrastructure, right? Because when we interact with the Web2 applications, we don't think about like how packet moves or how traffic is routed through servers. We just click the button on the browser, and all our intents or actions are executed automatically. And that's where we are heading in Web3 world as well, right? All the users' interactions will be executed through intents, and I think that the intent as a concept, is the solution for the new level of UX, where users just like interact with the app, and builders will not need to think about the infrastructure, right? They already have like scalable infrastructure. They pick one chain on where they can build, and then they focus on the user experience and like how to bring users to their apps.
For us, we believe in omni-chain interoperability, so that's the first part. We're live on a dozen chains, but it's all connected via one order book. Like there's fragmented liquidity. It's very evident in spot. For us, we want like a centralized exchange experience for users, which means that they can deposit, withdraw from any chain that they want, and using the native asset, not a wrapped asset. And we want to enable that experience. And it's already live. So I think we're one of the first, or maybe the first, to support EVM and Solana deposit withdrawals just natively on the DEX protocol. And the second part is we actually empower builders on top of us to launch their own DEXs. That's kind of how we work. There's currently 40 plus DEXs launched on top of us. The larger ones including Radium, so that's the largest AMM on Solana. I'm sure you're familiar with them. Their perps is powered by Orderly, so if you click perpetuals on Radium, that's Orderly, so order book and liquidity and overall infra. And they share the same order book as QuickSwap, which is the largest AMM on Polygon, and also WooFi, which is our sister company and first DEX that's powered by Orderly. So we think in terms of that interoperability, we want to make actually the exchange creation process to be permissionless and very, very fast, so that even KOLs can create their own DEX in a matter of minutes. That's kind of where we're going towards. So that's kind of separating out the exchange and liquidity away from the user acquisition funnels and the user experience.
For us as a consumer-driven application, it was always super important to provide very seamless experience. And we see that during the last couple of years, a lot of new retail users came to the space, right, due to meme coins and some other assets. But unfortunately, we still see that, the UX UI is still very complicated, and it's still not super native for these newcomers to crypto, right? You still have to sign transactions. We see that a lot of our users, for example, for them it's a bit complicated to use our trading bot because when they deposit some assets, they don't think about having some kind of native token, for the transaction. So it's kind of complicated for this new audience that is coming through meme coins or Telegram mini apps, right? They don't really understand this specifics of gas transactions and all that stuff. And actually, that's why it's super important to solve this issue. And we see some already good solutions on the market. And I think that these days I agree with other speakers that it's not about complexity of technology. It's more about building better UI UX experience and provide that to these new waves of users in Web3.
Do you feel that kind of bridging is still the backbone of the DeFi in general? Or are we moving beyond that? I'm a big advocate of chain abstraction specific for wallets. What are the things that you see kind of behind bridging?
So bridging, as a bridge builder, I definitely think that bridging is a backbone, right? But the problem is that the word bridge itself is very confusing. And even some of the bridge builders don't really understand what that means specifically, because in a cross-chain space, there are three main verticals, right? First, the messaging, when there is a need to transfer authenticated data, authenticated message between two smart contracts. Second vertical is the asset custody, like when you have asset in one chain, you want to issue derivative or the wrapped asset, right, on the other chain. That's what custody bridges are solving for. And the third vertical, which is the most important, the cross-chain trading, right? Assuming that assets already exist, you just want to enable simple exchange operations, simple trade, where users or protocols want to trade asset A on first chain for asset B on another chain, right? So, and all these three verticals are called by the word bridge, which is very confusing. And I think the main vertical that we are focusing on is the cross-chain trading, because users, or protocols as well, can move liquidity instantly, you know, and that's what enables interoperability. Like you can have assets on one chain, and then in a matter of seconds, you get them on other chains, plus this asset can be supplied to some DeFi protocols in the same transaction, right? So, and that's how infrastructure layer look like. And then the next layer is like apps should leverage the infrastructure, you know, to improve the UX and abstract away chains and all the infrastructure complexities from user perspective.
No one want to take it. So I assume you're more like around around specific on kind of like cross-chain, kind of like Maxi around. What is your take on kind of like the multi-chain side, cross-chain versus multi-chain? I feel like this is a big debate, and I've been like in 3 DeFi panel since Dubai, and everybody speak about. So I would love to understand you guys' take.
Yeah, that's actually a very interesting question, you know, and it's a bit philosophical. Because first, if you're a builder, you should just pick one chain that fits best your needs in terms of scalability, in terms of like user perspective. But at the same time, we live in the world where we have like so many chains, right? And for example, Aave is a good example of the protocol and DeFi blue chip that exists across many chains. And that's a multi-chain app, right? Because if you build cross-chain, you also connect the security risks of different chains. And you ideally want to have isolated security model so that in case something happens in one chain, that will not make impact on TVL or the liquidity in your protocol on another chain. So when protocols, like, and by protocols here, I mean the infrastructure, you know, for DeFi. When protocols deploy, they normally pick the multi-chain path because cross-chain, you can make protocols composable by enabling instant liquidity movement, right? And on top of liquidity transfer, you can also add like the hook or some, you know, additional instruction that will be also executed when liquidity is transferred. So basically, you can have Aave, right? But you can instantly trade or move liquidity from one instance of Aave, let's say on Polygon, to the instance of Aave on Arbitrum, and that will happen like in a matter of seconds. That's why multi-chain is sort of preferable way for the infrastructure DeFi project, but at the same time, like for builders, I would recommend to focus on one chain that fit their needs in the best way. And that's why Solana is getting like so popular, and we see this, you know, the wave of consumer apps like Pump Fund, Vector, and many others, just because they are focused on the user experience, you know, and on user acquisition instead of building infra.
Everybody's shy in this panel today. So what do you think are the main blockers around kind of like user onboarding? You kind of touch on like Solana being super good and doing it. What are the blocks around UX for kind of like user onboarding there are?
I mean, I think one of the problems is that there's a perverse incentive in crypto to, you know, to launch endless, you know, new L1s, L2s, and splinter liquidity and user experience, because that's, you know, that's the path to exit liquidity. And so there's like this battle of the kind of gambly, short-term thinking nature within crypto and actually wanting to make products that, you know, larger, they're more widely accessible. And so part of the solution is, you know, creating better interoperability layers so that, you know, as the splintering is taking place, it can still be relatively seamless for users to interact. Part of it is also just, I don't know, maybe a culture change, maybe different norms, so that crypto is less gambly, less short-term oriented.
Please.
Yeah, just want to add, like, from like founder perspective, right? For example, we have like Launchpad, right? We have like Ton, right? First of all, you have this you know, choice whether you just implement in like you know, direct wallets, right? Like through Wallet Connect, or you're thinking about some kind of solution like semi-custodial solution, right? When users you know, you just show the address and users send money there, right? And then like you also have this, you know, like dilemma, right? Okay, if just you connect in wallets, so how you, like if you have different chains, right? You become like multi-chain. So how to give this seamless experience, right? And it's very complicated these days. Of course, there are some like chain abstraction, you know, infrastructure. For example, this is what Particle are doing, right? And they're really advanced into that. But still, like even like for DGENs, I feel like there is some kind of split within the community, right? For degens, they don't really want, they want to keep their like private keys, their like, just connect their one wallet on one chain like Solana, right? They don't like really believe to some other like solutions, right? So that's why I feel like there is also some kind of challenging sometimes for the project also how to balance all those like different like incentives of users and different categories of users. Because some of them, some of the users, right, it's also about like security, right? Some of the users, they don't really care about security, they just care about UX, UI. But other users, they probably care more about security and whether those solutions that are providing more security, whether they're also giving good UX, UI.
Got it. And do you think as a founder, do you feel there is enough kind of developer tooling to build kind of like this crunchy solution? Or do you think like we gap somewhere and you wish like this will be there for the developer, in general? For like specific to developers, do you feel like do we have enough tooling to build actually cross-chain solutions? This is for everyone here, right? Like, I just want to move a little bit from users to developers.
I don't think so. No, I think it's super painful.
There you are. That was the point. How many developers?
I mean, we had to build, as Etherfi, we had to build all our own cross-chain stuff. I think, Alex, I think you mentioned the point that like you need to set it up in such a way that if one chain blows up, as we've seen many chains blow up, it doesn't rug the entire protocol. And so, I mean, that didn't exist. We had to build it for Etherfi, for our staking assets. Yeah, I mean, the whole gas abstraction, I mean, everything had to be built from scratch.
Yeah.
And we are getting there, actually. Even in dBridge, we are now working on a solution that enables so-called in-chain bundles, to let wallets to abstract away different chains. Because ideally, the UX that we want to see is like user opens wallet and he does not need to think like where he is, right? Because it can be like 2 is on Polygon, 3 is on Arbitrum, then 3 more on Optimism. And now what user does when he wants to move liquidity, he needs to send transaction one by one and also like swap chains inside the wallet, right? That's not a good UX at all. And what we are getting towards is user just clicks one button. Under the hood, the wallet will form like the bundle of cross-chain intents from each chain, and these intents are filled all together by solver on the destination chain, right? So it's a bit technical, but like from user perspective, it's just like you don't even see the chains. You just click the button, and you get action executed on another chain, which can be Solana as well. So this is, I think, one of the part that we still lack, but on dBridge we are now working to solve that so that like all the chains can be abstracted away as well. And second part is the gas abstraction, of course, because there are these like, fancy terms, chain abstraction, gas abstraction, account abstraction. But the problem is that like, I think many builders are focused more on the terms rather than on user experience, right? Because from user perspective, you don't need to think about gas. You just want to click transaction and get intent executed. And that's what we plan to abstract as well, so that solver kind of takes user permit, takes funds from the user, and executes the trade on the destination chain or the same chain. So I guess this is like the final kind of mile that we need to overcome until, like, in order to enable this like user experience that will have some sort of up to perfection.
Yeah, I think there is also some confusion sometimes around developer between kind of like synthetics, native, wrapped. There is a lot of kind of different things. I don't know, do you feel it's that way, or?
You mean wrapped assets, or?
Yeah, specific on kind of like, these asset types, right?
Yeah, but this is already solved. Again, like asset custody, right? Like wrapped assets appear because of asset custody solutions or custody bridges. It's just the problem that bridges, like many bridges, are trying to solve all these three verticals that I mentioned simultaneously, right? When in dBridge we think that each specific vertical should have a specific specifically designed solution, right? For messaging, we have one solution, like one protocol. For asset custody, we have a different solution. And for trading, we have the third one, right? And the cross-chain trading vertical is the one that enables actual interoperability. Because like the rule of thumb for cross-chain is like the less messages you send cross-chain, the better. Because I think many builders don't really understand like the difference between message and the call data transfer. Because the term message means that the data needs to be authenticated and the data is sent only between smart contracts on two chains. And messaging solves only a very narrow set of use cases, like 5%, The rest of use cases is solved by call data transfers. And call data means that you just need to execute certain actions, certain instructions on different chain, right? And the beauty of call data is that you don't need to authenticate or like pass data through the additional validation layer. That's why like the execution is very fast. It can be executed in seconds. And plus the risks are taken not by user, but by the solvers who execute that. So yeah, that's a bit technical explanation, but this is like basically how it works. And the beauty of intents and like cross-chain trading that you don't need to think about any wrappers. There is no term wrapped asset. You just like trade specific address of specific token on one chain for specific address on specific token on another, and it's a goal of solver or like market maker, to figure out how to fulfill this intent and then how to rebalance liquidity between chains.
Got it. Anything to add? We're good?
Yeah. For us now, I mean, I think the whole concept of multi-chain or cross-chain should be non-existent at some point in the future. And even I think the concept of DeFi, as it'll all be, our thesis is that the piping will all be decentralized and we'll have really nice, perhaps centralized front ends that kind of just pipes into everything, which is already starting to happen now if you look at what centralized exchanges are doing. So for now, like for Orderly, like if you go on any of the builders on top, like let's say WooFi, there's a Web3 and Web2 login, right, via wallet or a social login. The fiat on rails are coming soon. You don't touch the chain. There's no concept of bridging, even though it's omni-chain by nature, and it's like a centralized exchange. When you deposit and when you withdraw, it's the only time you think of the concept of a chain. All other times, you're just trading like you would on a centralized exchange. I think that's kind of the experience that that DeFi needs to get to kind of onboard kind of the regular normie users that centralized exchanges are onboarding, right? To abstract away all of the stuff that we've been talking about, which is I think like among the focus of us, right? So then any concept of bridging, I think bridging should only be like a to-be term. It shouldn't be like retail users that are doing things like that.
Got it. And Mike, you touched on tooling, right? Like building from scratch something is always like super, I mean, it's challenging, right? Like, but do you think we are missing like the other side of the medal is always like standards? Do you think like this is a question for everyone? But do you feel at that point of time you wish like there was also some standards out, some kind of specs out that you were saying, okay, this is how I can build it from scratch if there is no tooling, or right now we're good to go because I don't see much standard. But feel free to jump in.
Yeah, I mean, I think certainly in the EVM world, and I'm speaking a little bit out of turn here, but it almost seems like a pretty obvious miss that the whole roadmap of the chain was a roll-up centric roadmap, right? Like that's the way Ethereum is going to scale, but at very minimal interoperability functionality, or almost none, was built into the actual chain. So it was like, all right, guys, go build a bunch of roadmaps, go build a bunch of roll-ups, and then clearly that's going to lead to a whole bunch of splinter liquidity and bad UX without really like taking the time to build in that functionality. Like that should be an EVM thing, like atomic transactions across roll-ups, transfers, even like the bridging stuff should just be built in so that users don't need to think about it. So to me, I think that's kind of an obvious miss.
Yeah.
But that's not going to happen. That's the thing, because we need to think like objectively, and there are many people who are thinking there are going to be like shared sequencers, all the roll-ups are going to be like sharing some state or something like that. But like obviously that's not going to happen. And I think that many chains will eventually even start like to spin off from Ethereum, because like why should you pay additional like gas fees, you know, or pay for settlement if you can just like have your own consensus mechanism? Because like eventually, you know, like EVM rollup, you can treat it as a separate chain, and between chain and Ethereum, you just need to have a custody solution, right? So that's like the word rollup or layer 2 defines how that custody is enabled. And custody is like you lock native ETH, for example, on Ethereum, and you get derivative, let's say ETH on Solana. And then the question is like how the security or design of this custody is secure, right? You can have like the rollup kind of centric design, but at the same time, what you can do is to just leverage a set of cross-chain messaging bridges, right? Let's say wormhole, D-bridge, layer 0 simultaneously, and set up 2 out of 3 consensus between these 3 bridges to enable asset custody, right? So to get asset released or minted, you need 2 out of 3 bridges to agree on certain message, right? And that may be even more secure way to enable custody than through relaying proofs, ZK proofs, or like enabling rollup design. So yeah, like that's how the kind of cross-chain EVM environment probably look like. And the problem is that there is a lot of marketing, and now the marketing around like being roll-up, inheriting security guarantees from Ethereum is not valid anymore, right? Now no one cares. Like people care about UX and about security, like how security of custody is designed.
So if this is the goal, right, and most of the company obviously like should have in mind, okay, interoperability should come first. Like we were speaking about, you know, not everything need to be on chain versus off chain and stuff, right? Like how we balance, you know, speed, decentralization with the focus of actually having interoperability in the first place. Like what is your take, like these trade-offs? You know, what can we actually like sacrifice versus kind of like, okay, this is what we need to deliver better to users.
You mean what should be on-chain versus off-chain?
Even like how we balance kind of like decentralization, speed, decentralized infrastructure. Like what are yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, as I mentioned before, I think it also depends on what category of users you are targeting, right? Because if we speak about like newcomers to crypto, they will probably need some very easy of use, and they will definitely want to think about like security, right? But this is what like projects themselves should think about, right? But again, like if we speak about like DGen, so more sophisticated users who really know much about DeFi, of course, their demand on like security stuff, right, will be different, and they will probably be okay to wait like 1 minute for transaction, you know, to be approved, right? But like new users, right? For them, probably waiting another minute, it can be like, oh, like what the hell is going on within this industry, right? So yeah, that's why, like, from my perspective, also depends on like what categories of users we're speaking about.
Yeah, I think if you're building a product for consumers, it has to be on par with the types of apps that people use in their day-to-day. Mm-hmm. Like if you can imagine something, let's pick like a fintech app like Revolut. If you can imagine like trying to apply all the crypto bullshit experience to Revolut, would that product have been successful? Like imagine you had to pay $10 every time you do something on Revolut, right? Anytime you change your credit limit or something. Imagine you had to like wait 60 seconds or whatever for like every time you do something for it to take effect in the app. Like none of these products would have been successful. And so the bar is that. It has to just work, it has to be easy, it has to be just as good as any other app the user uses. So in the end, like you can't have trade-offs. That's just not an option. You need to build it to a standard of quality that can actually onboard 100 million, 1 billion users. So that has to be the bar. The tech stuff underneath, you just got to make it work. That's why we just built our own shit, because that's what we had to do. There was no other option.
Agree, yeah. But then I'm asking myself also a question, like, you touched also on Solana, specific onboarding, but then is interoperability specific, kind of like a cutting edge? cutting edge for those projects being around, or is just kind of a public good, right? Because at the end of the day, if we're kind of like thinking about those trade-offs, we cannot build, security, speed, decentralization, and then actually like focusing and saying, hey, Solana does it better, is just thinking about their own user onboarding, less kind of interoperability on the side. Then I'm asking myself, are we just building interoperable ecosystem as a public good, or actually as a kind of like a cutting edge and value prop for the users?
And by project, you mean the chain, right?
Yeah, yes, like ecosystem, right? Obviously, building our own ecosystem with our own users, building our own community will be more scalable, right? But at the end, we need to think about the global adoption. That's why chain abstraction is still like probably one of the biggest kind of like challenge that we need to solve, because the users don't want to kind of like, being around siloed ecosystem.
Definitely, yeah. And I won't be surprised if the apps, like Revolut will be the first to solve for UX in Web3 as well. Because so far, UX is quite bad, but probably one of the biggest like UX-focused companies, such as Revolut will be like among the first to get that happen. But that still requires some kind of final mile on the infrastructure side as well.
I mean, I'd say ETH price is pretty good, so maybe we'll get there first.
Nice. Yeah, it's getting there. I like the panel vibe here. We need to close up. One thing that you're excited about that you want to share with the audience? 6 months, 2 months. Let's not be too much long term. Go for it.
I would say that definitely this year we will see this chain abstraction, tools, because for even like for us as a business, like we don't see a lot of like B2B solutions, but we started to see them, right? And I think we'll see more and more. And it means then I think that there will be some kind of breakthrough this year in terms of UX UI. It's already happening, and this is what we are very passionate.
Ryan, go for it.
I'm quite excited about the DEX space in general. I think we're going to see like a decentralized finance sooner than we think. I mean, there's some prospects out there already, and I think it's going to be like fully functional, like in terms of like spot perps, staking, like all types of yield products, more permissionless than their centralized counterparts, and omni-chain, i.e. deposits and withdrawal, native assets from even like Bitcoin, Doge, and these types of assets, and it will all happen on this one open platform. So that's something I'm excited about.
Yeah, I'm super excited that DeFi is actually booming. And we've been building for DeFi for a long time. And now with the time when all the trading activities is moving on-chain as well, and Solana is at the heart of that trading activity, because high performance matters. For cross-chain we build high performance infrastructure because DBridge is very fast, and Solana is like high performance chain where finality is very fast, and plus asynchronous execution. So DeFi is booming, and trading is basically the main use case for DeFi, and all the trading is moving on-chain, and I think we get less and less dependent on the centralized exchanges and custodial solutions, and at the end of the day, like everyone will trade on-chain through MetaMask or through Phantom, which is super exciting.
I'm excited. I mean, we talked a lot about consumer adoption. I'm really pumped about consumer apps in crypto. We just launched the DeFi Bank platform, and I mean, it's the fastest growing credit card program that our partners have seen. And so we're seeing tremendous success. I think there's a lot of demand, and once you build something that's actually usable, that's easy, that provides utility, I really think there's 100x, 1000x opportunity to grow in DeFi.
Nice, you hear it first. Awesome, thanks so much. I'm excited for you guys here. Big round of applause.
Thank you.
The weather's, oh, sure, I need to go.
Thank you.